This is a HeadGum podcast. Hello. This is Fake the Nation, where we talk about news, we talk about culture, and where we keep tabs on the drama happening at NBC News. You guys, Lester Holt is stepping down from the nightly news desk. Joy Reid was fired. A bunch of others are losing their shows or are getting less regular gigs at the network. I am your host, Negin Farsad, and I have an idea for all of these retired former, semi-former NBC journalists. I think they should all be doing a reality show like Fuckboy Island, but journalists and absolutely no sex. Instead, they do lots of deep analysis and reporting, but on an island. And then Al Roker goes crazy because the weather never changes. Who's with me? All right, today we ask, do you track your partner? And do women actually need more sleep than men? We'll also get into what Doge is doing. Spoiler alert, it's all miserable. And finally, we look at how Hollywood is handling the ladies by the numbers. Spoiler alert, it's complicated. Today, this panel. You know what this panel is? This panel is the equivalent of today's New York City springtime weather. It's like one of these days where you woke up and you're like, do I even really need a coat today? It's so nice out and it's so sunny. There's no threat of rain and it's just making me so happy, but it's February still. And oh my God, this is the podcast equivalent of that feeling. Okay, we have with us comedian. First of all, I love this comedian. I've seen him a murder many times. He has a new album out. It's called Husband Material, which is so funny. I really hope you listen to it. And he has this really great show in Brooklyn every Wednesday. It's called We Have Fun. And let me tell you, I've done the show many times. We do have fun on that show. If you're ever in the city on a Wednesday, go see this show. And he's been doing these JD Vance videos on his socials that you can see because he's got the eyes for it. He's got a little bit of that natural liner and the voice, and he's a white man, but one that we love. It is the one and only Dan Wilbur. Hey, Dan.
Hi, thank you. I'm so happy to be here, and I apologize to anyone who hears my voice and thinks that I'm doing the impression now. This is just what white guys from Ohio sound like.
You know what? Fucking JD should be apologizing to you.
That's
okay?
Absolutely true. Absolutely.
The other panelists that we have on the show today, the breath of fresh air, the spring-like pep in our step, is host of the podcast Unladylike and host of the podcast Conspiracy She Wrote, which is a podcast about women, gender, and misinformation, which is like the newest thing I'm sinking my teeth into. You must subscribe. You've heard her on the show before. You've loved her on the show before. It is the wonderful Cristen Conger. Hey, Cristen.
Hi, Negin. Thank you so much for having me and comparing me to spring weather. That's a first.
That's how I feel. Folks, before we get into the show, I just want to remind listeners that they can support the show by going to patreon.com/Negin Farsad. Fun little fact about our Patreon is there's $4 levels where you get stuff, like you get bonuses from the show. You get more of the show twice a month. And then at $5, you get even more show. Then at other levels, you get more stuff. It's fun. There's things. But here's the fun fact about our Patreon. There is a level. It is the $1 level, for which you basically get nothing except for the joy of knowing that you support this show. So for $1 a month, you just get to have that great feeling. And my God, you know, a bunch of you do it, and I bless your hearts. And then sometimes I throw a bonus your way in a really erratic fashion that I can't even describe. It's like once every 6 months. Is it? Or is it every fiscal quarter? No one really knows, but it does happen. So, and also, if you just email me, I will probably just send you one of the bonus episodes, because I think you're great. And this is the way I run a totalitarian dictatorship at Fake the Nation. Okay? All right. Also, just a quick reminder too, we are still collecting surveys at gumball.fm/fakethenation. It would really be so helpful if you would fill out the survey at gumball.fm/fakethenation. It helps us figure out who you guys are so we can get the sponsors that make more sense for the show. And it's the whole thing, the whole ecosystem just works better if you would do us a hardcore favor and fill out this real quick survey at gumball.fm/fakethenation. Oh my God, thank you so much. Now let us get into it with topic number 1. Okay, so this has come up lately because a couple of friends of mine have casually tracked their partners on their cell phones. And it hasn't been like mendacious. It's usually been about logistics and kid pickups and boring stuff like that. So my question for both of you is, do you engage in this sort of tracking?
I do not. No. But
interesting.
I have been thinking about the only time that I track anything is when I'm tracking DoorDash or Grubhub. And so I would like it if my wife left and then was coming back with food. I would like to know when it is arriving. But I don't need to know what, if she made a stop or something. I don't need to know all that. And yeah.
I'm in the same boat. It's too much information. I don't need to know where you are, and if you aren't where you say you are, well, we got a whole other kettle of fish to fry. So
I was thinking about that. Was if she was tracking me, I'm like, I'm never lying about what I'm doing or where I am, but I am often lying about when I'm leaving. So I need I'm at that bar and I'm 3/4 of a way through a drink, and I say I'm headed to the car. Home. Yeah, and then somebody's like, we're gonna do one more, and I'm like, oh boy.
Yeah, and the funny thing is that's how I also do not track. I'm shocked, first of all, by how many people over the age of 40 do the tracking. Like, I just was like, I can't picture people over 40 doing it. They didn't really grow up with the stuff, like, whatever, or 35. Like, just anyone who doesn't, like, grow up, between 0 and 15 having a fucking cell phone rammed right up their fucking butt. But, like, that's how I feel about life today. But like I feel, because I also feel like it's not like I think my husband is cheating. I don't think he thinks I'm cheating. This is what I wouldn't want him to see. I wouldn't want him to be like, why did you walk in and out of that CVS 3 separate times? In a row today at 12 o'clock, Why did you do that? Why didn't you do whatever you needed to do at CVS all in one go, And I'll just be like, I'm embarrassed. I don't want to talk about what happens. You know what I mean? There are things that happen and I don't want to talk about it. And that's what I don't want. Those are the secrets I want to hide for the rest of my life.
Right.
Yeah, I don't want to have to explain how not scandalous my day-to-day is, in a way. And I work from home. My husband does not. And I am, for whatever reason, like a little bit weirded out. I mean, like, it's fine. But I'm even weirded out at the fact that when I leave the house, I know that he gets like a Ring app notification because the front door is open.
Yes.
And even that alone, I don't think he's sitting there. I know he has better things to do with his time. But even that, I'm like, well, he knows I've left.
I don't love that. I got to be honest. I live in an apartment, so we don't have any of these things. But, like, I don't love it. I don't love hearing that for you. I think you should disable that. Let's disable it.
We haven't
I think you should just leave the door fucking wide open every day.
Anyone's welcome. We haven't set ours up outside, so it's just sort of in like a test spot right by the door. And it also happens to be by the mirror that is right in front of our door. So when you're leaving, you check if you got anything in your nose, you check your face. But my wife has seen me multiple times, like looking to see how gray my beard is going. Like just very vain moments, low points of like, I got to go to work, but I got to stare at myself for like a full minute. And it's that's you don't want that. You don't need that surveilled.
Right. It's so funny because literally this, like, last night I was taking the dog out and then I came back in and someone came off and I was checking out my face just to see, like, where's the face at? You know what I mean? Like, how's she doing that face, And where are the does she have jowls yet? Like, what's up? And And I was just really, and it was like 9:30. I just didn't figure anyone was coming in and out of the elevator. Boy, was I wrong, because someone came out of the elevator and deeply realized that I was checking out my own face, and I was very embarrassed.
Yep.
By the way, I just want to point out that we're a little bit of an anomaly. I kind of thought one of you guys would have been trackers. Okay, I was wrong. And I'm happy I was wrong. You're both better people than I thought. I guess I had a poor opinion of you before, and this is so much better. But 21% of respondents to a survey by Life 360 conducted last month found they had of their 1,000 app users said that if they were in a committed relationship, it would be a deal breaker if a potential partner wouldn't let them do the share location, because now sharing location is like the next one, a next level you could take with someone. Of the 150 Gen Z respondents, 30% said not sharing locations is a relationship killer. Almost 60% of participants said sharing location signals a relationship is official. And so we're not necessarily, the trend is not necessarily in our favor. Okay,
Right.
So if you wanted to feel old, there you go. I made you do it.
Yeah,
It doesn't make me feel old. It makes me feel relieved a little bit that I'm not dating in that era. Because I'm also curious if there is any kind of gender dynamic in terms of preferences of like who is insisting that locations must be shared, and maybe it's just kind of an accepted norm across
to see
the
a gender
board.
breakdown on this data. They didn't offer one.
I
That's
mean,
a good
come
question.
on, Life 360 surveys. But I can just imagine myself if I were out dating a guy and he was really insistent that I share my location with him. Like that for me would be a red flag. But also I'm speaking as if it is still, 2015. So
Right.
Right.
I think that it does not belong in a relationship, and location tracking is a sacred bond between users and TikTok, the Chinese government and me. It should not be in your dating life. It should only be the oligarchs
with the
who know.
CCP. Yes. Absolutely. I think it's so beautiful. What a beautiful sentiment to end that little issue on. Let's move on to this next question I have, which is about, do you guys talk about this at home? Now, I believe the three of us are what they call heteronormative. This comes up a lot, but I sleep more than my husband. And then I've said that out loud many times, and what has been served to me on social media has been very many videos that talk about why women sleep more than men. And then I saw a legitimate headline asking experts, do women actually need more sleep than men? Now, has this come up for you guys at all?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Absolutely. And I was reading an article that said that women are more likely to suffer from insomnia. And I think that's because they got guilty consciences, and that's why you got to track them. All right. I changed my mind on tracking. Track them. Track them all. All right.
That was JD Vance, who just popped in to the pod.
he's got good ideas.
You want to be a childless cat lady, or you want to tell me where you're at all times?
Listen, do you sleep more than your boo?
I think I do. I was surprised and also not to see the stat about women being insomniacs, because my husband is the insomniac of our house.
Yeah, same here in ours.
But he can also, once he gets into a sleep, he can stay asleep longer than I can, I feel. But yeah, historically for us, he's been the problem sleeper.
Well, interestingly, yeah, I think my husband's been the problem sleeper. However, when he gets sleep, all he needs is 6 hours. And then he can get up. He'll get up. He'll do these fucking. This is so insulting to humanity, but he does these 5:30 in the morning, really intense, high intensity interval training classes with other fucking really horrible athletic people who really just love waking up early. I not only cannot wake up that early, but I can't. He's one of those people, the alarm goes and then he gets up like a robot. Like he's not like, oh God, he's just like gets up, and you really think, oh no, and then you think, is it JD Vance that popped into my bed? Like that's not what it seems like. But I can't. I need minutes. I need minutes to be able to adjust to the reality that I have to get out of the bed.
Yeah, I was thinking about that I know a lot more women who not necessarily need more sleep, but need more time to rot in bed. That's what it sounds like. Is that
but
men
also,
are like, I gotta get out of bed and I gotta do this thing.
Yeah.
And then I'll reward myself with a nap later.
Right, but I also need like 9 hours. I mean, that's the truth. I need like 9 hours. But that's
good, by the way. That's good.
No, and I'm over it. Like and it's always been like this since I was a kid. Like I've just needed more sleep than I think everyone. Than all of my roommates, than everyone. I've always like needed more sleep, but I also am like very good about scheduling that reality into my life. Now here's the deal. Apparently, I want to say this is just a reminder to me and all of us on the Communist Party that TikTok and Instagram Reels are not necessarily peddling science, because the fucking New York Times, which is a paper of record, that fucking interviewed actual experts on this issue. They were like, the resounding response was, we don't have enough data. Mm-hmm. That was the fucking response. There was a study they did that found 56,000 adults in the United States that found that women not needed but had 11 more minutes of sleep the previous night. Right. They reported on that on the previous night more than men. Researchers found that women were twice as likely as men to say that they woke up feeling not well rested. That tracks for me. They also, the insomnia thing that you mentioned, they also did find that women report more insomnia. And they also found, and there is like a biological reason for this, which is the hormone progesterone is linked to better sleep, but progesterone, which is why evolutionarily, Charles Darwin, fucking explain to me this one. Why evolutionarily would you have a hormone linked to sleep that also, for a woman, dips out of their system once a month? Why would you do that?
Because there were no trackers back at the dawn of time, so it's nature's iPhone tracker. That's progesterone, and that I do think is science.
Yeah,
that's science. Yes, there we go.
On the subject of not enough data, I like that in one of these articles it said that it's basically based on vibes how much sleep you need. And that's I've been to a sleep doctor. I have a CPAP machine, and they literally, like, they can see how much you're moving and stuff and how many times you wake up, but it is still up to you how you feel in the day. They're like, are you tired? Yeah.
Do you have a CPAP machine?
Oh, yeah.
Did it change your life? Like when you started using it, do you feel better?
No, absolutely not. It's the same with sobriety, same with meditation. I'm the same tired monster. But yeah, it's nice. I sleep a little better.
All right, folks, let me know. Do you need more sleep than your partner? All right, let's take a quick break so we can find out about our sponsors. By the way, go to gumball.fm/fakethenation so you can let us know what kind of person you are so that we can figure out this whole sponsor thing and make it better, more efficient. And when we come back, we'll continue. And we are back, and we're ready for topic number 2. Over the weekend, 2 million federal employees were asked, what did you do last week? Elon sent this email, if that's not clear. And basically he said, if you don't respond by Monday night or whatever, that we'll take that as a resignation. But then some agency head said to their employees, just ignore it. And then the Office of Personnel Management said that the response was voluntary. But then later that day, another person at OPM said that they should respond and agency heads should evaluate it themselves. And also around the same time, Elon doubled down, saying that everyone had a last chance to respond before losing their job. And I guess my question to you, before hearing that 755 point timeline on one email, is what does that tell you? What is this telling you about what's going on?
I mean, it tells me that a genius is now running our corporate, our C Corp, the U.S. government. It did remind me of being back in like mega corporate media land and those end of the year self-assessments that I think are the bane of everyone's existence and quite possibly the biggest waste of time. I find it so ironic that this efficiency, in heavy quotes, team is asking people to do the most inefficient things, like sending a "What'd you do this week?" email.
Yeah. It's also like it puts you on edge. I had a job like that where they would be like, please tell us what you did, every day this week, and like tell us how much time each task took.
Right.
And I'd be like, oh my God, I'm on the chopping block. And then when I did it, my boss found out that I was the only one like pulling my weight. And so it's nice. And then I just immediately quit. I was like, if I'm the one, like, I'm probably not paid enough for how, like, I have realized that I'm worth more than this, and ditched it. And that kind of stress, who I want that to be on, is damn safety employees. You know what I mean? Like inspectors. I need people that are in the EPA and the FAA to be stressed that they're about to be fired. That's what I want.
Well, and it's also interesting because a lot of those like inspection jobs, like the military, have a lot of downtime. I mean, I got to imagine, like, they're not like on the edge of your seat. Is this dam gonna break? You know what I mean? It's like a lot of just like, we're just generally making sure that things are operating, and and if they're operating at that level every day, then everything should be fine, and no one should have to like live in a constant state of fear, right?
Yeah. Well, so they shouldn't have run that drill. This is too edgy. They shouldn't have run that drill with the helicopter, and we wouldn't have crashed that plane. You know what I mean? Take a damn day off. Oh my God! I apologize.
That was definitely JD.
Again,
that was
JD Vance. JD Vance popping into the pod, peeing to the pee. The funny thing about all of this too that I find is you go through the process of getting a cabinet, of also getting approved the most incompetent cabinet probably in the history of time. I'm not on top of like who McKinley's cabinet was, but I'm just going to go ahead and just say it seems like this is maybe the most incompetent cabinet we've ever seen.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're sort of like conferring all of this trust into these cabinet members. And then after going through the public affairs nightmare of confirming someone like Pete Hegseth, you then say, except for Elon Musk is just going to be a step ahead of all of these people. We're not going to let them have control over their own employees. We're going to give this random other guy some weird emailing capabilities. I mean, it's like it's a weird fuck you to those people who should deserve very, very many fuck yous. Nevertheless, you fought for them, and now you're fuck youing them. It's weird. So it's inefficient. It doesn't make sense.
I just realized while you were talking that it is amazing they can email everyone in the federal government.
What email is that coming from Elon? Does he have a .gov? Or-
It's a Doge. Yeah. Like, I don't know what it is.
I think it's an Office of Personnel Management email.
Yeah. It just reminded me, I figured out how to do it in college, how to email everyone at the @bard.edu email addresses. Like, I don't know how it happened. Like, someone in IT gave me the listserv. And I got called in the dean's office for abusing that privilege. It was great.
I mean, also,
I complained about a lot of things to the entire staff.
Wait a second. So then, okay, so this brings up the other question of like, yeah, I guess you can, you know how Gmail will put like 50 emails a day, whatever it is, 500 emails a day limit. I guess with, this OPM email, you have it's not 2.5 million. You can send that many emails a day, which, it's wild. And so here's a couple of other things. So they're really like fighting to cut money from the jobs, as if that's they're just to give you some numbers. Our debt is $36 trillion and counting. And we usually rack up an interest of $3 billion a day. So, and then what Doge has done has just been a couple of billion or whatever. So this is a grain of sand, what he's doing in a very large beach. In order to have real meaningful cuts, you got to look at defense, Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security. A couple of those things are quite popular. They account for 86% of the budget, those things, defense, Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security. Now, the other fun and hilarious thing, I pointed this out last week, but I can't stop mentioning it, is that they are also cutting IRS employees who are in the middle of a tax season, who are actually responsible for revenue. And the IRS used to, go after small dollar revenue, with audits and stuff like that didn't make sense. They stopped doing that, and they started going after big dollar revenue, billionaires and whatnot, who are trying to tax evade. But when you get rid of employees, they can't do that anymore. So
it also just seems like such obvious red bait for the MAGA base and whoever is left on X, unironically, in terms of them being able to tout it as efficiency. And even in the reporting, I noticed that like Axios kind of framed it up in a way of like, Americans really love efficiency. They like the idea of Doge. It pulls really well, government efficiency. But it's like, we can't put those two things in the same sentence because, like you said, Negin, with that rundown of numbers, doing all of this, spending however much money it is taking to essentially, quote unquote, save the government, what is essentially pocket change, it just seems like a whole kind of public deflection.
Yeah. One of my favorite things about the 90s is that Al Gore did this in the 90s. He eliminated, he was the head of a little task force to do efficiency. He eliminated 426,000 jobs. And it happened over a span of 7 years. So it didn't happen like this in like a month and everyone was confused and there's all these backtracks and everyone was mad. And it happened with agency heads, one by one, talking to agency heads and asking them who here is mission critical and who here isn't. And then that was one aspect of it, is like, when you talk about efficiency, is like, who here is mission critical, who isn't, so we can be financially efficient. And then the other aspect was, what here is just taking too long, and why is it taking too long? So like one of the things they found was it would take them 18 months to get a new computer, and so this is the 90s, so like whatever, but I don't know what that
Gateway
means.
2000.
It was actually a typewriter, but
but yeah, one of those word processors that had the like digital keys. So they figured out what was going wrong bureaucratically, that why a request to buy a new computer was taking 18 months, and they narrowed that down. So it was about saving money, but it was also making things faster. And it took 7 years to do that, right? It's not something you can do in a month because it requires so much granular attention.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, this was never in the news. Nobody got mad. Whenever there was like a law, whenever there was like a little a statute or something that Congress had passed that made something slow, like the computer thing, they went to Congress and they were like, "You guys, do you mind like changing this? Because when you passed it, it was like a different time, and now it's just stupid." And Congress was like, "Oh my God! Like obviously, thanks for bringing that up, and we'll make an amendment."
Mm-hmm.
And that's how they did it. It took 7 years, and it was probably boring and granular work. That's not what's happening here.
I genuinely miss when politics were boring.
Yes.
And I think I only experienced it for about 3 months of my teens. And then 9/11 happened, and now we're here. That's just a quick rundown in case anyone's listening who doesn't remember. I was what the millennial experience is like.
Yeah.
So everything was really, it was Bill Clinton played the saxophone, Al
Yes, he
Gore
did.
was a robot, and then I didn't really care about, George Bush stealing an election. And I was like, it's whatever, it's all boring.
It's
and now
fine,
it's
yeah.
the most interesting thing that's ever happened the last 25 years. And I'm frightened. Yes, they should do it slower and make it boring.
Do it slower, make it boring, and then you won't get sued.
Yeah.
Fucking Al Gore never
And
got
you won't
sued.
fire your nuclear, the people in charge of the ICBMs or whatever, like the missile silos.
I kind of mentioned this a lot, but like when I came in the office today, I said to Andrew, I was just like, I can't. The thing that's making this such a struggle as a podcaster, which is, as we all know, is such an important job. The real struggle is like you read a thing like if this many people have been laid off, and then the next day the the headline on the below the fold is, oh, those people were hired back because otherwise there was going to be a salmonella outbreak.
Right.
Then you're like, oh, so the story that I just is over, I guess. I don't know. And it's very hard to keep track of.
Well, it's just the last angry thing I wanted to add to this is that if we were in any other country, we'd already be rioting. If they were if they were just cutting off Social Security checks, or like if you were in France and they tried to raise the retirement age like 6 months, you'd go out there and fight a cop. And instead, we're podcasting. So I think you're doing a great job.
Guys,
I think it's very important.
Very
what you're
hard
doing.
about it. We're podcasting so hard. I also just want to raise your blood pressure slightly. And look, they're trying to break my spirit. I will not let my spirit be broken by any of this. Okay. Like this matter, which is that for decades, the White House Correspondents Association determines who's in the White House press pool.
Oh, right.
That's been a thing. We've known about that. And now the White House wants to determine itself who joins the press pool. They're saying like, oh, we're like bringing it back. We're taking the reins back to the people and letting different types of news outlets come in here. News outlets like the fucking OTN. What are they called? I don't even. Anyways, so what do you think? I'm assuming you guys are both pro.
I love it as a podcaster.
There should be some true crime podcasters that get in there and they're like, we're investigating a current crime,
and
white collar crime.
And is this all? Well, certainly not all of it, but is this more fallout from the Associated Press daring to call the Gulf of Mexico the Gulf of Mexico?
Yeah. I know. Look, I think that they had been signaling stuff like this during the campaign, And
the previous Trump administration. It's not like they were.
Yeah, in the previous Trump administration. Yeah. So this isn't terribly surprising. I don't know what the press. I don't know. This had happened at some other point in. I don't remember when this happened before. Maybe during the first one, when a bunch of the networks joined together because Fox was being excluded. I want to say Obama. Was it Obama? Clinton? I don't remember. In one of these administrations, a similar thing happened for some particular event. It wasn't like overall. It was like one event. The news organizations got together and they were like, you will not exclude Fox News. Hilarious Fox News. Anyways, but they were like, let's stand up for the integrity of this one place. And you know, so we'll see how this plays out. Like, it hasn't played out yet, but
I think he'll invite them back just because he'll get bored. He loves to fight a news reporter.
That's a good point.
And so he'll just be like, oh, all these people are just like applauding. I need someone I can rip the microphone away from.
Yeah.
And say that they're fake news. He doesn't like it.
It
That's true.
also suggests that I don't have the exact like figures in front of me, but in like since like leading up to and through the inauguration, there have been like a number of news organizations that have unnecessarily like settled lawsuits, basically like paid out lawsuits to Trump.
ABC,
I believe
Fox
CBS,
itself, I think. Yeah.
Washington Post certainly
Twitter.
has. And
I think it was the George Stephanopoulos thing for ABC. But yeah, so go ahead.
Well, it just suggests that, of course, like it that didn't buy them any favor, it seems like. But it's gotten people to lose their jobs, so that's what this administration loves the most, I guess, based on Doge.
Yeah. Efficiency. I want to end this segment by asking you guys a little bit about, I saw James Carville wrote an op-ed. You know, James Carville is this famous political strategist who came to fame in the 90s when he said of Bill Clinton, the reason for his win is it's the economy, stupid. Now, his recommendation for the Democrats is to roll over and play dead, just to let the GOP have their infighting, be insane, and then when the debt ceiling fight comes to a fever pitch and it seems like they'll, blow the entire global economy, Democrats can come in and save the day. Pick strategic moments like that, but otherwise, roll over and play dead. Let the GOP show how bad they are at governing. What do you think of that strategy?
Is that not what they're already doing?
It's exactly what they're doing. And it's great if you don't care what happens to like 20% of the country. If you're like, I don't care if a fourth of the country is out of work and in a soup line again, if it means that we'll get our next FDR. And you're like, I guess that's a strategy. What if they just keep going? And like, what if everyone's poor and they're like, that's not true, and then no one votes for Democrats ever again? It's so weird because I heard that with President Obama, that there were, no names please, but certain comedians being like, they should just let it go belly up and just see what happens. And there were a bunch of people that, went to Wall Street and were like, yeah, don't bail out these people, bail us out, which is true.
Yeah.
You should be bailing out the citizens of the country who are going to face the brunt of this. And instead, we bailed out banks and we put the economy on stilts. And President Obama deserves credit for like saving us from the second Great Depression, but also... I guess that's a strategy. Make everything worse so that we can make it better, even though there's just going to be a plane crash every week. It's like a rude strategy. I'll say it's rude.
Yeah.
Rude to let people die so that the Democratic Party can have a resurgence and it can be slightly more to the left.
I think in the let the debt ceiling come to a head and save the economy from ultimate collapse just at the last moment. It just also feels like maybe the only moment of leverage there is. So,
That's true. I didn't mean to make it sound like
I think we can yell and scream and stuff like that, but sometimes we're like doing that into the void.
Right.
And then there's a couple of moments where we actually have some power. I don't know. Cristen, what do you think? Final words.
Oh, goodness.
JD Vance is listening
Sum up
to you.
the Democratic strategy for the next 4 years that works. Come on, Cristen.
Okay.
Come on.
No
Here we go. I'll tap into my James Carville. How's that? Imagine me with a cue ball head.
We need another guy who is sexually weird with women. That's what'll help. Get behind him. Okay. Sexually weird, I landed on in my head. Okay.
I mean, and I think, honestly, that might be the place to leave it.
Okay, sorry.
I think that's the final word.
Guys, and you heard it here. Kristen's little note there to the Democratic Party. Sexually weird. Let us move on to topic number 3. All right, we have to be brief about this because we spent so much time being fucking ridiculous about Elon Musk. All right, San Diego State University recently published its celluloid ceiling report on the status of women in Hollywood. And among their findings, women still lag far behind men in roles that are behind the camera. By the way, I think this is the DEI segment that would be banned if this was a federal podcast. So, okay, now women accounted for only 16% of the directors who worked on the top 250 films last year, the same percentage from the previous year. And then in the top 100 films, the share of women directors actually dropped from 14% in 23 to 11% last year. Now, I guess my question is, what gives, my friends?
Let me start by interrupting you and Cristen to tell you what the actual answer is. I'm going to tell you, I only wrote one thing down for this, and it's that if you've ever worked in movies, you know it's like a 20-hour day, and it's hard work, and it's a lot of, and it's the fact that women need more sleep than men.
Sleep.
That's right. Women need more sleep. And they can't be expected to do these jobs. That's all I got.
Well, and often on set, they're so busy tracking those new boyfriends, seeing where's he going? What's he up to? They're easily distractible. And by they, I mean me. I mean, it's not terribly surprising to see like the stats where they are. First of all, like especially on the director's side and behind the camera, it's been such a wide gender gap for so long. Not that makes it any better, but as someone very much outside the industry, it's like, well, isn't this kind of in keeping with sort of what's just going on with entertainment in general in terms of just, lower quality, less original, fewer risks? Or maybe I don't actually know, though, what's going on inside the industry.
Right. I think, that's absolutely right. I mean, I think that's absolutely right. I have no idea. But that sounds great. That sounds right. We actually talked about I don't remember when this was. I think it was like before the holidays. There was like the kind of enshittification of entertainment discussion, which is like the opposite of peak TV, where we're sort of experiencing this plateau of TV, where TV feels like a little samey, like don't take too many risks, don't be bold, don't do this, don't do that, which was like very much the opposite of what we had been experiencing in the 5 to 10 years prior. And I think that makes sense, where you're sort of like, oh, I need a steady hand at the helm. Who is that steady hand? And is his name J.D. Vance? Let's hire that guy. You know what I mean? You're like, you sort of go to the safe hand, and I can see that. I can see that happening. I mean, with the kind of general enshittification. Dan, what's your hypothesis?
Well, I'm
here?
just thinking of that none of us won against the big studios when it came to like scanning our bodies and using them perpetually. So like none of us are going to have jobs, at least as actors. And that if they're just going to do, body scans and CGI and stuff, they'll just make a fake woman, and all the Marvel nerds will be like, this is great. We don't need any more real women in film. We just need weird CGI, like those Japanese pop stars that are actually computers, those holograms. That's enough for us. We don't need any more.
That's what we need.
And then you won't have, and no one will have to be on set. and no one will have to be, so there won't be any jobs, and it'll just be a writer, quote unquote. And I'm just doomsplaining the state of the industry. There'll be no risks.
Our own jobs.
Yeah, we're done. It's like it's over for us. But that's good. That's actually progress, because men and women will be out of work. So
out of work.
That's equality, and that's equality.
Let me give you guys some of the on-camera. You mentioned Marvel. Let me give you some of the on-camera data. The researchers found that 77% of the 100 top grossing movies from 2023 had more men in speaking roles than women, while only 18% had more women in speaking roles than men. Just 5% of movies had equal gender representation on screen. Now, I think one area in which I will give some grace, I guess, to this data is some kind of historical movies. Like, I'm thinking about an Oppenheimer, let's say, where there just weren't that fucking many women in the room. They weren't allowed, you know? And so in situations like that, you know, I don't know. What do you think? I mean, there's a lot. I mean, what do you think?
Now I'm thinking about Barbie, which seems like at its face, it's sort of like the pinnacle of female movie. You've got Greta Gerwig directing, and obviously the IP is Barbie. But it's, I mean, Ryan Gosling also, you know, was co-starring.
Well.
There was a lot of male representation, you know, and I enjoyed the movie very much. But even like a movie like
maybe that was
Barbie,
one of the 5% that had equal. Who knows?
It might have been. I don't know where I was going with that, but Barbie, Ken was there too, and that is my statement.
I think it's definitely getting, this is the nerdiest thing I'll ever say in my life, is that I rewatched the original The Thing from Another World, which is the basis of The Thing from the 80s. Which
the
is
one
great.
that was on TV?
The Thing from Another World?
Yeah.
It's like
was that on TV?
No, it was like it was on TV, you know, it's just like an old black and white movie. It's like a metaphor for like being afraid of the Russians. It's a very good movie to watch right now, because you'll understand that we're back.
Yeah.
We're back to the Cold War, baby, but it's over and they won. So I was just watching it, and they're famously, The Thing, the John Carpenter movie, is a bunch of men in like a rec room in the middle of the snow killing each other, and it's a horror, and you're like, man, I wouldn't want to be up there with just a bunch of men. And then you watch the old like 50s movie, there's a bunch of women there, because they're like, yeah, we have like jobs for women at this base. And you're like, I can't believe they just sort of erased this. I mean, it's interesting for the movie, but it's like we're getting less progressive as we go. I'm sure there's a reason for that, and some nerd will be mad at me that I said this, but it's just very funny that there's like a whole through line of like these people in like a sort of modern relationship. They're in like a situationship where they're sleeping together, but they're not actually dating. And you're like, this was in the 50s? This is the 50s. Anyway, just
That's
something
wild.
fun I thought I'd tell everyone about. I watch movies. I watch old movies. You're welcome.
And I mean, honestly, I also want to say, like, you know, I was watching the first like 20 minutes of Suits LA, the spinoff reboot, which is what's interesting about that is I've never watched 20 minutes of the original Suits.
Oh, interesting.
So why did that happen? But and I watched like the Grosse Pointe Gardening Society. Guys, I was in a pilot's mode, and there are television, you know, does have a lot of female leads. You know, if Grey's Anatomy taught us anything, it's that you can hang an entire show on a lady, and people will watch it. So it's there. I don't want to suggest that it's like the dire. This is, by the way, all of this data is movies and not TV, so it's like kind of just maybe slightly distorted in that sense. But I don't know what I think. I think that I'll say this, that I'm in the process of making another movie, and the interesting thing is the way I hire for this movie is my buddies, right? I mean, it's a small fucking movie, and nobody cares, and I'm obviously the director, so we're getting that number. But I I want to make the movie with my buddies who help me make my other movies. And I'm not like necessarily this is me. I think about this shit all the time, but I'm not necessarily thinking about the exact breakdowns. And then I'm like, oh, my fucking piece of shit. I'm not thinking about that, but I want to work with my buddies, so it's a weird business. But why don't I have more buddies that came into the, why couldn't I find more of those buddies that were ladies? And it's because the business didn't facilitate that,
Maybe you need to get to your coffee shop and do a little recruiting. I know you've got your go-to coffee shop.
That's right.
And maybe you could, set up one of those little, the signs with the little tearaway pieces you're looking for.
Yeah.
Put that up. Recruit.
I have a deeply embarrassing thing to admit, and you're going to be so upset. A casting director had reached out to me, a friend of mine, and she was like, I need a woman who is from these ages to this age, and it was like 22 to 25 who does comedy. And when I went to look, I was like, everyone that I was suggesting was 32. Because I was like, oh yeah, you're like young women. Yeah. I know a bunch of young women who came up in comedy 8 years after I did. They're all 22. And then I realized like I'm almost 40. And everybody who is under 35 looks to me like a 22-year-old. And they were like, none of these people, why are you sending these people? And I was like, I know great young comedians. They're all 10 years in.
Well, it's also, the other weird thing about comedy is that it takes like 10 years before you can even recommend someone.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right. That was the other problem, is that like I knew a bunch of people that I saw at an open mic.
Yeah, this fucking 22-year-old asshole who sucks right now, I'm not recommending them. You know what I mean? Good luck with that guy or whatever. Anyways. All right, folks. Let me know what you think. Are you feeling the statistics when you're watching the movie? That's my other. Any of these movies. It's Oscar season coming up, so I'm curious if you're feeling the stats that we just listed. All right, folks, my friends, that is the end of the show. What a wonderful time I had chatting with the two of you. I want the people of Fake the Nation to be able to follow you and all the wonderful things that you do. Dan, Wilbur, where do they do that?
You can find me at Dan Wilbur Comedy on Instagram and TikTok. You can find me at Dan Wilbur on the other sites. And you can find me every week hosting stand-up in Brooklyn.
And Cristen, where do they do that?
You can find me at Unladylike Media on Instagram and TikTok, and listen to my podcasts, Unladylike and Conspiracy, She Wrote, wherever you find podcasts.
Folks, do it on both of these fronts. You will not be disappointed by following these two. And you know where to follow me and all the things I do. Just a quick reminder, go to gumball.fm/fakethenation to fill out our survey. Would really, really love and appreciate that. And you can go to patreon.com/Negin Farsad to support the show. And I want to thank everyone who makes the show a possibility. That's everyone at HeadGum. Thanks so much to our wonderful producer, Andrew McGuire. Thanks to Gaby for our theme music. You can reach us at fakethenationpodcast@gmail.com with any questions, concerns, ideas that you might have. And otherwise, we'll be back in your earballs next week.
That was a HeadGum podcast.